Good. Right, so last week, we started a new month last week and a new project. So last week was just talking a little bit about using watercolours in a sort of gouache style. So gouache is more opaque. So these were some of the demos from last week, very quick kind of watercolour demos. So basically what I did was I added a little bit of white gouache. So gouache is opaque watercolour. So it's exactly like watercolour but less transparent. I don't have proper gouache anymore. I just use my watercolours because I don't want too many paints. I've got hundreds of paints as it is. But I just usually buy like one tube of white, and that is nice opaque white. So I find it quite nice as a sketching medium. These are just on white watercolour paper. Normally I tend to just sketch in my sketchbook. So these, what I like about it is that you can paint very directly. I didn't really do any, on these ones, they're just sketched out with paint. They're quick kind of seaside scenes, boats going by, people paddling and things like that, so I just sketch them out very quickly. This one, similar, but with this one I drew it out with a pen first, so it's a more complicated scene. So I just did a line drawing first, and then a little bit of watercolour, and because it's on dark tone paper, I needed a bit of white to get things to stand out. So that's that. I thought this week I would I'll probably keep with the watercolour gouache medium, but I'll actually just sort of keep the demo to drawing today and move on to sort of urban scenes. So that would be the theme of the drawing today. So I'll just do a quick demo of how I go about drawing urban scenes. I'm sort of partly doing this because although I don't think anybody from this class is going, I've got a couple of holidays coming up, plus some people come along to the Southend Plein Air group. So we're kind of getting into the outdoor season. So I thought I'd do a few demos that are relevant to going outdoors, sketching outdoors. I think the next Southend one is, I think it might be Sunday the 19th or something like that. It's not too far off. And we're going to go over to Rochford and paint and draw around by the golf course. So if anybody wants to come along, you're very welcome to come along. We usually sort of sketch and paint about an hour or two on Sunday for about 11 o'clock. So that's that. The other thing I wanted to find out was on the scheme for this month, I've got lots of little bits and bobs. So today was like drawing urban scenes, last week gouache. Next, one of the things, or a couple of things that are on there are lino printing. So I was thinking if anybody wants to do lino printing, I can bring that gear in this month. I know I've got people in the afternoon class interested, but would anybody in this class want to do that? Not a problem if you don't, but if you do, I can facilitate that. Maybe? Okay, right. Well, it will be here for next week's afternoon class anyway. But if not, I'll perhaps just do the other demo that I thought I'd do, which I've done pretty much every year, is gridding images and then transferring your image from, a gridded up photograph or drawing onto another surface. So I thought I'd do a recap of that, and it's a slightly different take I could explain. I discovered that last year that I hadn't really thought of, so I'll do a little bit of that next time. Okay, right, so drawing urban scenes. So this one was the painting I started when I was in Dorset the other week. It does need a bit more work, and this was Corfe, so we stayed in Corfe, so it's quite nice. We basically just stayed down this road here, just a bit on the right. It's a lovely area. And I've got various photos. I basically started this one off in the afternoon, which was my bottom photograph there. But actually I like the light more in the morning, where you've got some areas of shadow and some areas of sun. So I carried it on sort of the next day in the morning. So I basically sort of drew it all out. I actually used a pen, although today I'll use a pencil. So I just use a pen to draw that out, and then the next day start putting colour. It does need a bit more work, so I'll probably work out on my photos now to finish it. Pop that back there. I've got various photos. So this one I quite like this VW in the background. I thought that was quite a nice splash of colour because it's nice, soft, sort of yellowy stones, but I thought maybe a little bit of red there might be interesting. And then I thought I did actually sketch out where a person was going to be, so I've got a couple of photos, or photo with a couple of people on, so I could take those out of that photo and pop them into the scene. So that's my intention for that painting. What I do though when I'm drawing out this sort of scene is I try to work out where I need to start, and I think I need to start about the middle of the page, and I'll probably start right in the distance, so you can just about see like a rooftop. Actually, I'll leave a little bit of room for this wall here. So there's a rooftop there, and that's coming out a little bit like that. So that's kind of square onto us, like that. And then I just basically start at one end of this street and just work my way across. And I find that the most effective way of working. So there's a sign of a building there with a chimney. What I could do is a little bit of measuring to check that everything's going to fit in. So, you know, if it's a painting, I probably would do that. But for a sketch, I usually just start and not worry too much about it. I'll just carry on. So that's that little bit of the end of that building. We've got another rooftop here. That's coming up. I'm going to hold on to it so you can't see it very often there. Yeah, so that's coming up here. And then another chimney there. And then another bit of roof, and that's coming up to about the height of that chimney. So it's going across there. Like that. And then the front of that there, that level there is just slightly higher than this. Actually, bring that down a tiny bit. So once I've got something established, like this little bit here, I'll just keep referring back to that. So this level here, I need to see whether that is in relation to that. These sort of heights here, and then let's start another roof here. Now this is quite a bit taller, so that's coming up to about there. And again, a sort of wider chimney, something like that. And then this has got a couple of dormers in, so the top of one is about there. And that comes down just below the level of that rooftop. Down there. Then the next one, because I'm looking down the street, there's a little bit of an angle between the bottom of this window and the bottom of the next window. So that's going to be about there. And then same with the tops, that will be a little bit higher. This little triangle dormer bit will be a bit higher. That comes upstairs. I actually need the roof to come up a bit higher, the ridge of the roof. And again, I can check the angle of that. That's the angle of the ridge of the roof. And I can take the pencil away. That's kind of what I need up there. So that needs to come up like that. And I can look at this space between the chimneys. That will come up to there. And that gives me that edge then, and that will just slope back gently there. And it's a matter of just looking at the shapes here. Coming something like that, and then we've got a little triangle there, a little triangle there. This guttering level, that is a little bit of an angle. And again, I can just put my pencil, hold that vertically, put my pencil there, and just get the angle there. So the thing to look out for when you're looking down a street is that these angles will vary and they'll all kind of fan out. So the higher up I'm going, the steeper the angle. And that's the idea of perspective. So the idea is that, say if we had a front edge of this building here, because this edge is closer to me than this edge, for instance, that would appear longer. And this one appear shorter. In order for that to happen, these angles, or these, will need to sort of converge. So I can't actually see the bottom of the building there because we've got a car in the way. But that's what I'd expect. That's going to go off that way. This is going to go this way. And these other buildings, that's going to be similar. Although the roof is a little bit lower, and I think that makes it quite interesting. We've got all sorts of different levels, and you know, these windows are lower than these ones. So that would just add a bit of kind of visual interest. But, and again, I've got a chimney here, that goes back that way, come down here. This next roof is a little bit lower, so it's going to come out there. But you'll find that that is a similar angle to that. This is a similar angle to that. Does that make sense? Or I've overcomplicated it. Sorry?
Yeah, just like that. This is so easy.
Well, try and make it easy. Try to make it. Yeah. Any questions? Well, what I'm trying to show is a sort of process.
Yeah.
And I always find this is the easiest way. If you want to draw something like that, start here, work your way across. Because I'm right-handed, that helps. That I've drawn something here and I can see what I've drawn. And relate what I'm drawing here to what I've drawn already. So rather than start with big shapes and then try and subdivide, try and work from the distance and work out. So first that, I haven't got that many photos of buildings today, but there are a few. The other ones I have got are sort of relating to this. This is a sort of part finished demo I did for on a workshop one. So I've got plenty of the photos in here. So this is Southwold. So there's plenty of those. If anybody fancies that one, which in some ways might be a bit more straightforward because a lot of it's square on. Okay. Very good.